my name is Isara Garcia, and today I will be discussing the occipital bone. I will be using both my articulated skull, right here, and my disarticulated occipital bone to first discuss the location of the occipital bone on the cranium, as well as its major functions, then dive into the relationship that the occipital bone has with its neighboring cranial bones before diving into the anatomy of the occipital bone and its major landmarks. The occipital bone is a flat bone located on the most posterior side of the cranium. So you can see right here, it's right here, it forms the base of the skull, and it is a site for muscle attachments, ligament attachments, and fascia attachments, all which help provide movement to the head. It also forms part of the cranium, as we know, so it protects the brain. It protects primarily the occipital lobe and the cerebellum. It also provides an outlet for the central nervous system, so it connects the brain to the spinal cord, which helps provide movement. As we can see here with our articulated skull, the parietals articulate superiorly to the occipital via the lambdoidal suture. The temporals, right here, articulate inferiorlaterally with the occipital bone via the occipital-mastoid suture right here. And if we look inside, this is where the sphenoid articulates with the occipital bone right about here. That is the basilar part. You can see that a little more clearly on the disarticulated occipital bone, this is the basilar part. It's that little quadrilateral shaped portion right here. And it articulates with the C1 vertebrae, like I said before, via the occipital condyles, which is right there, those little raised articular surfaces, which I will go over again a little later. Now that we've gone over the function of the occipital bone as well as its relationship to its neighboring cranial bones, I would like to talk about the occipital bone's anatomy and its major landmarks. So the occipital bone's most notable landmark, the most iconic one in my opinion, is this one right here. It's the foramen magnum. Now the foramen magnum translates literally from Latin to mean big hole. And as you can see, there are a bunch of little small holes, but it's hard to miss because this is the big one. Now this is where the central nervous system passes through. It connects the brain to the spinal cord. Very important, provides mobility. That's why I can move right now. So it's very important. It's the connection site. Then right above it, superior to that, right here, that is the external occipital protuberance. Now the external occipital protuberance, it provides a muscle attachment site for the trapezius, and it is also where the nuchal ligament attaches. Then if we take a closer look right here, this would be the superior nuchal line. Let's see if we can have a better look on the disarticulated occipital. Yep, this is the superior nuchal line. This would be up here, the supreme nuchal line. Then down here would be the inferior nuchal line. This one right here is the medial nuchal line. Now the nuchal lines, they help by providing muscular attachment sites. They are also where the fascia attaches, and it provides the movement of the head. Another interesting thing to note about the nuchal lines is that the superior and the medial nuchal line form a sort of T. Then you know that right beneath it, this is the inferior, it kind of forms an arrow with the medial nuchal line. And the supreme nuchal line is up here. It is where the occipital bone kind of starts to curve lateral to the foramen magnum are the occipital condyles. Now the occipital condyles are raised articular surfaces on either side of the foramen magnum, and they help articulate with the C1 vertebrae, otherwise known as the atlas vertebrae. There you go. It's the articulation between the C1 vertebrae and the occipital bone. Now the C1 vertebrae is right here. It's what it looks like. It's called the atlas vertebrae. Now I used to get very confused between the atlas and the axis vertebrae, the C1 and the C2, just because to me they sounded similar before I realized that the atlas is the name of the Greek god which holds up the sky, and the atlas is the vertebra that holds up our head. Then superior to the condyles, also lateral to the foramen magnum, on either side are these small little canals. These are the hypoglossal canals going through right here. See if we can take another look. You can kind of see it right about there. So these are the hypoglossal canals. The hypoglossal canal literally means hypo, below, and then glossal, tongue. So it is where the hypoglossal nerve passes through, and that nerve goes underneath our tongue, and it provides the movement of our tongue. One last thing that I'd forgotten to mention was this little bony cross right here. It is called the cruciform eminence, and it divides the endocranial surface of the occipital bone into 4 different fossae. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the upper 2 fossae protect the occipital lobe, while the lower 2 fossae protect the cerebellum. Thank you so much for watching my brief discussion on the occipital bone. I hope you found this video educational, and I hope you enjoyed.